Hello and welcome to the Sword Experience. I'm extremely excited because I have a new co-host at the moment who's coming in because David isn't available, and maybe this guy will kind of like hang out for a little bit. Not quite sure because I don't know. I have to test whether he's any good. He's my co-host on Peace Farm Radio, Ethan Dettenmeyer.
It's a privilege to be here. Let me answer your questions right out of the gate. No, he's not any good. And you answered my question, which is who am I replacing? So there you go. This show, by the way, you've done a really good job with the show. The show's a lot of fun. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's a lot of little bits and tidbits we got. We like to sort of bring different things to it, and we're always going to be adding things. So if you guys out there had any suggestions, you could always obviously contact us at contact@swordxp.com and say, well, why don't you try this segment? Because I'm sure there's bunches of things that we've not even thought of yet that come up. Well, we do that on Peace Farm Radio all the time, right? What about, okay, come on, we have a guest today that we're going to be talking to, Sean Kanan, who was actually on Power Rangers. So were you ever a Power Ranger? Did you ever get into that?
No, Power Rangers was after my time.
After your time? Yeah.
But I have respect for it. And I love the sort of the lore of the show. You know what I mean? I love how they did the show just to sell toys, and the show was done for free basically and given away.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But, and it's also famous because everyone in Hollywood seemed to have done a tour of duty on it. Did someone contact you about Power Rangers when you started?
No, I never did. No, I never did Power Rangers.
I think that's what it's known for, is like, I think there's been like a couple hundred actors who've been a Ranger at one point.
Well, I mean, there's been about 100 Rangers. I mean, that was actually, you know what, I'm also, I mean, because Sean Kanan actually did that when he first started, right? I mean, that was his first thing that he did. And then, after that, he then went on to do, what I've done? I've totally blown the show. He didn't do Power Rangers. He did friggin' Karate Kid.
All right, let's backtrack. You want to backtrack?
I'm going to backtrack this.
Well, then just backtrack to where you introduced that we have a guest named Sean Kanan. We'll make a cut.
Okay, so we're going to make a cut there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Who was he in Karate Kid?
He came in. Okay, I'll tell you this in a minute. I'll give you this in a minute. So, all right, we're kind of coming back. 3, 2, 1. So yeah, that kind of brings me to a guest today. Did you ever see the Karate Kid?
Oh, of course, man. We lived the Karate Kid. Are you kidding me?
Well, I guess today, Sean Kanan was one of his first things he did was Karate Kid Part 3. He was the bad guy, Mike Barnes, that actually went in there to intimidate what's his name? What was his name? The character's name? Daniel.
Come on, Daniel LaRusso.
Yeah, Daniel LaRusso. And they're bringing it back. Of course, they're now that the Karate Kid is actually, a series. Well, it's not a series. It's actually they've called it a totally different thing now. But the idea is still there, and they're bringing back all the other characters. And although probably Sean couldn't sort of mention anything, I'm pretty sure he'll be brought into that franchise as well, because they like to bring in all the older characters. They brought Marty Cove back in at one point, as the villain, and sort of there's a kind of a nod to the old guard, if you like. It was interesting.
I get the feeling. I agree with you on that. I get the feeling Mike Barnes will be back. They've done a brilliant job on that show, by the way.
Yeah, they have actually. It was an interesting concept, and it never died. So, but I want to get into the interview with Sean because he's done not only that, he's got a lot of stuff, and he's doing a lot of stuff now. He was also known for Young and the Restless, General Hospital, Youthful Days, Bold and the Beautiful. He did a lot of daytime. Now he's getting into a lot of other things, and he says he's actually working more now than he did like in 2 or 3 years prior. So I want to get back to Sean, and we'll be right back. Alrighty, so this week I'm in Los Angeles. This week my guest is in Los Angeles. This week it's somebody that I know for a couple of years, Sean Kanan. Hello.
Hey, my friend. Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I think we've known each other around 30 years.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of scary, isn't it?
I knew you before I did Karate Kid 3, which was in 89. So
it was because it was in wasn't Larry Moss, it was
Roy London.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people came out of Roy London's acting class. You know, there's Helen
Yeah, there was
Hunt
that
was
one,
in
there was
there.
that one
Brad
guy.
Pitt.
Yeah, I was going to say there was that one guy. What's his name? Pitt.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Brad Pitt. I mean, so Hank Azaria was out of that. I mean, there was a lot of people came out of that acting group. It was, you know, it's one of those periods when everybody knew he was a good acting teacher, and you know, we all ran to it. And it's great, you know. But
It was like full contact psychological warfare in that class, though. You know, I mean, acting class is not for the faint of heart. I don't think. It really deconstructs you as a person, and yeah, you gotta have a thick skin.
Well, that's one of the things I tell people a lot of the time. You know, when there's like, "Oh, my kid wants to be an actor," I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay, hold on," you know, because there's a lot of disappointment in this industry, you know, and they do rip you apart in acting school. You got to do this, do that, depending on what method you got, you know. So,
you know, I think there's a big difference between people who, you know, their kids express an interest in getting into acting, and they do some sort of community acting class, and people that are out here and live and die by it, and it's what we do for a living, and it's, you know, it's highly competitive. So
highly
highly
highly, I've actually lost count now how many people actually, how many actors there are and how many shows there are, you know.
Right.
What did you do right after when you first started as a did you do martial arts first, or did you, you know, was that something you grew into as an actor? How did it work for you?
So I first set foot in a dojo when I was about 14 years old in my hometown of Newcastle, Pennsylvania. It was originally Shotokan karate, Japanese hardstyle karate. And I was really just taken with it right away. I studied for several years, moved out to Los Angeles to start my acting career after doing 2 years of college in Boston at Boston University. I transferred to UCLA. And, you know, martial arts is something that I have studied at various times in my life, different styles. There have been times that I've, you know, been more involved than others, but it's just something that I've always kind of carried with me. You know, as important as the physical aspect of martial arts is, I think there's an emotional and spiritual and mental aspect to it, which even in the times that I wasn't actively studying it, it was something that I have always carried with me, and it's made a profound difference in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives you a certain discipline that carries through everything else that you do. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, I've noticed that in my life, in my career. Let me ask you, when you so you did, was Roy London the first class you ever took, or were there other ones you took after going from school?
You know,
I'm saying the first class in Los Angeles type of thing,
in
you know,
Los
once
Angeles,
you got here.
Yeah, I think it was. I can't remember if he was or I also studied for a little while with Michael Shurtleff, who wrote the book Audition, which is a terrific acting book. And I can't remember which one I was with first. Yeah. But you know, Roy had a real effect on me. I mean, you know,
yeah, me
like,
too.
It was a serious acting class, and you know, it was this kid coming from you know, this small town in Pennsylvania to the big city to get an acting class. He kind of put me through the ringer. I mean, I think he really wanted to make sure that this was something that I was serious about doing, and it was a bit of a baptism by fire for me. It was very difficult, and I feel like I had to really kind of prove myself to him to kind of get his attention.
Do you think, here's a question for you, because this is kind of, because what acting, and you were talking about it before, talking about deconstructing you in a sense. Do you think you were constructed in a certain way, and Roy kind of went in there and kind of was trying to rip that apart and say, okay, I want to get into this stuff that you've been hiding all this time?
Absolutely. You know, I as a kid, I was pretty severely bullied as a kid. And I think most people, we go through life building up walls, you know, wearing armor to protect ourselves from, you know, the slings and arrows of other people. And as an actor, it's completely antithetical, because you need to break those walls down to access your vulnerability to be an effective actor. And I came in with a whole lot of armor, because I was at the root of me, I was this little kid who, you know, had been really brutalized, you know, with bullying and everything, and probably from a very young age, I was determined that that wasn't going to happen again. And it took me a while to be able to start to break that down, so that I could get at what I needed to get it to act.
I can't tell you how many martial artists have said that. And I've had a lot of guests on this show that have actually said exactly what you said. I was bullied, or I wanted to defend myself, that type of stuff. Me, it was, I had the opportunity. When I first started doing martial arts was prior to Highlander, about a year or two before. I did it because I wanted to kind of control my temper. And, because, I was very volatile, and I still am to a degree. And I think it's the path to sort of try and, stop that, and get the discipline and control it. I talked to my kid about that down. So if you do, he plays a game called Roblox, right? Which I'm sure everybody here has heard of Roblox. And he went in the other night, and he's just going in, cutting. I said, first of all, you have to decide that what the tactic is here. He said, it's not real life. I said, well, actually it is, because you're actually looking, when you go in these video games, you got to think of what you do in real life and how you would control yourself if you were in a situation like this. So I'm hoping that some way down the line, you have all these games that have all this sword and guns and all this type of stuff, but you actually go in it with a mindset of how it might be able to help you as an individual in real life. It's kind of, because it is a reflection. How you do that game is a reflection of what you are.
Yeah, I think one of the things you learn from martial arts is, and they say this about golf too. I'm not a golfer, but people say this, that, it's a metaphor for life, for how you live your life.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about a guy, playing 18 holes of golf with him, I guess. And I think that there's a lot of that with martial arts too. For me, I treat most things that I do. There's a little bit of what I've learned from martial arts that I try and bring to it, whether it's, controlling your emotions, which is difficult, I think, for people like us, because our stock in trade is
emotions. Exactly right.
Yet in real life, you need to do your best to kind of control them. And, at 54 years old, I'm still learning that. But it's certainly better than I was. But yeah, I think everything you do, and you're right. Your son's video game. If you come at it from a point of it's a metaphor for the real world, it becomes a very different experience.
Right. So what happened when you? I mean, the Karate Kid was one of the first things you got. It's like, I think it was like the third IMDb thing that's on there. So what happened? How did you get the Karate Kid, and how excited were you, and what was the process?
So the process was this. I was in Los Angeles pursuing acting. The head of my karate school was a gentleman by the name of Master Fumio Demura. He's a world-renowned martial artist, and he also happened to be Pat Morita's stunt double. Pat Morita, who played Mr. Miyagi.
Right.
And so he knew that I was out here trying to pursue my acting career. And he said to me, look, they're going to have this open call for the new bad guy in Karate Kid 3. And I think you ought to try and get an audition or something. So I showed up at the casting director's office, and was trying to circumvent the cattle call for people that don't know what that is. Anyone on the planet who wants to come can come, and it's a shit show. And I showed up at her office and was like, I'm a real actor. I've done like one episode of a show that was like about to get canceled. And
a real actor.
Yeah. And she's like, no, you got to go to the open call. So I go to the open call at Warner Brothers, and it was Columbia actually. And there must have been 1,500 people wrapped around the studio. I mean, guys with duffel bags full of like Japanese martial arts weapons, guys in full. I mean, it was crazy, right? And so John Avildsen, who had directed the first two Karate Kid films, and he also won the Oscar for Rocky, was making his way up this line of hopefuls. And I knew I had literally seconds to get his attention and try and get him to stop. And I did. And he stopped in front of me, and he asked me to do a quick improv with him. And I did. And he sent me inside the sound stage, and there were about 9 other guys there who were also going to actually get an audition. And, Entertainment Tonight was there, and Access Hollywood. And long story short, this was a publicity stunt. I mean, the chance of finding one of your lead actors in third installment of a worldwide franchise is infinitesimal. I mean, you just don't do it. But it was the third film, probably needed a shot in the arm. And so they had this open call. So inside, there's Ralph Macchio. And I mean, a year before that, I was a guy that bought a ticket in the theater to watch. I mean, it's surreal. I grew up watching Pat Morita not only as Mr. Miyagi, but he was Arnold to me on Happy Days, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there I am, and again, I you know, kind of, you talk about emotionally wrangling yourself. I knew that if, you know, went into this audition I was going to do very shortly with Ralph Macchio, looking at him like he was this big star, I was going to blow it. And so, you know, I went in and they asked me to intimidate him, and I guess I did. And, you know, I drove him.
I intimidated him.
And, you know, I was driving down the Sunset Strip to my shitty little apartment above the Whiskey on Sunset.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. And everything just seemed different, Adrian. It's like the lights were brighter, you know, the Hollywood sign, you know, we joke, we say it's either sort of smiling at you or smirking at you. Mm-hmm. And it just, everything felt right. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at the billboards, and in my head, I'm going, God, am I going to be on one of these? And anyway, I found out the truth a few days later that they hired somebody else. I was crushed. But as luck and the guy they hired wasn't able to do the job, and they remembered me and called me back, and I got the role.